Hey Hotshot, it's Jess at the Emotional Fire Academy, here today to talk about how to knock out loneliness for good, potentially. For good. I'm going to give you a bigger picture overview of loneliness, what's happening, and how to fix it if you decide to fix it. And the big key is self-love. So stay tuned all the way to the end of the video to get all the information. Subscribe to my channel if you are a highly sensitive person ready to up-level your life this year, get everything you want, accomplish your goals, no matter what is happening in the world. That is what we do at Emotional Fire Academy. Welcome, my name is Jess. I am a former firefighter and master NLP practitioner. And really quick, if you are a highly sensitive person who is looking for additional one-on-one support about a lot of the things I talk about self-esteem, reaching your goals, managing your sensitivity, evolving as a person. These are all things I can help you with through my one-on-one program, Flammable to Fireproof, and it's a guided 12-week journey through all of that to get to the other side and reach up and be everything you want to be. So check that out on my website. Details are below, emotionalfireacademy.com, if that is something that interests you. All right, now that we got all that housekeeping out of the way, loneliness. So what does the phrase, I want you to say this to yourself in your head, I am alone. I am alone. What does that conjure up for you? You should immediately be feeling maybe some body sensations. You're going to start to, your internal narrative is going to continue. I am alone. Is it positive, negative, or neutral? What does that conjure for you? I'm suspecting if you're watching this video, you were captured by the loneliness in the title, and that has been an issue for you. I know it's been an issue for me as a highly sensitive person. It's a little bit of a paradox, I feel, with highly sensitive people because and we're going to return to the I am alone stuff in just a second. So remember your answer and hang on to that. We're going to use it in just a minute. A lot of highly sensitive people are introverted, and so they really love being alone, right? They have this really rich inner life that they prefer to be alone. And we're going to go into why that is. For some people who are a little more ambiverted or extroverted as highly sensitive people, loneliness is... There is a aspect of that I think is attached to the identity of being a highly sensitive person, right? Because we are the minority, right? HSPs make up 20% of the population, roughly. There's this, in Western society, stigma about being a highly sensitive person, right? It's not okay to be sensitive. So there's a lot of these factors that perpetuate a feeling of loneliness because we have a janky story in there. And that's really what loneliness is about. It's an equation, just like many other emotional reactions. It's an equation, and we're going to get into it and give you a bigger picture view of what the equation is so you can start messing with the pieces of the equation to change the equation, right? Just like in mathematics, if you're taking numbers out, removing them, that changes the equation. It changes the equation and then the outcome. So we're going back to the emotional fire triangle. Yay, we haven't seen this in a while. Welcome back, emotional fire triangle. So in NLP, in my coaching, I talk about, emotional reactions happen in the middle. It's kind of the fire in the middle. So it's the equation is A plus B plus C equals D, right? That when the three aspects of the triangle come together, you have this is the outcome. This is the answer to the equation, the solution. And so tinkering with the sides gives us a different outcome in the middle. That's kind of how emotions work. And the combination of language, our physiology, and our conditioning, so essentially our thoughts, our beliefs, and our feelings are what is the numerics in the equation. So when we're feeling, when you thought about I am alone, what did that conjure up for you, right? If it conjured up a feeling of neutrality or positivity, that's awesome. Loneliness might not be a problem that you have. If it is, keep watching. I'm going to explain to you where the problem actually lies. The illusion of loneliness is that we need people, right? I need people. I need to be around people. This is the illusion. Because what does being around people actually give us, right? Being around someone their presence only makes us feel something inside of ourselves because we're falsely attributing it to that person, right? Again, it's an equation, like me plus somebody else equals me being happy. The other person's presence is actually an illusion. Like we don't actually need that person to be there to generate those feelings within ourselves. We just use the person's presence as an excuse. And often we will do this in life. This is, I think, part of the awakening to yourself and your own empowerment, is realizing that often we will use things outside of ourselves as excuses or reasons to generate then a feeling inside of ourselves. And really we don't actually, the object, the 3D object in the outside world is not necessary to complete that cycle. We can actually feel that way without that person, object, situation, circumstance. We can self-generate it. And this is part of the self-loving part of really starting to step into your own power and love yourself. Self-love is a big part of combating loneliness, because self-love, as I define it, is loving being yourself, right? You're loving the thoughts that you're thinking. They're pleasant thoughts. They're nice thoughts. They're good thoughts. You enjoy thinking them. They bring you pleasure when you think them, as opposed to thinking negative thoughts all the time that run on autopilot and kind of torment you and cause you a lot of emotional turmoil, and that we don't think we have control over, letting it just run, you know? Self-love and your conditioning is getting rid of beliefs that don't serve you. Thinking and believing and really having conditioned yourself to believe that you're only okay if you're around other people, if other people are around, isn't necessarily a very loving belief. And I think we all really learned this during COVID, because we were all thrust into quarantine, whether we liked it or not. No matter where we are in the world, most people had to go through quarantine, had to experience quarantine, or at least a large majority did. And so being forced into the situation of facing our aloneness, and then the beliefs that came up, like if you think about the last year, like what beliefs came up for you and were challenging, because the things that we normally did to combat loneliness were taken away. They were totally removed. You know, going out and being around people was removed. Even sometimes eating in a restaurant or going to a coffee shop or going to a concert, or all these things were removed, and we were only left with our beliefs and our conditioning. So I think a lot of us had to face down our own loneliness this year and really come to terms with it. I know a lot of highly sensitive people thrived, because many highly sensitive people, especially introverted ones, have stories. This is about your story. Like, what is your narratives? Have stories about, I don't like people, or people are complicated, or I'm happier by myself. So they really thrived during the last year. And so this, loneliness, really one of the contributing factors is the quality of your story about your relationship with others. And if there is a story in there about a power dynamic of, I feel better when I'm around people, period, versus when I'm by myself, you're setting up this dynamic of then prioritizing that over feeling okay when you're by yourself. And so we're going to get into this a little bit more in just a second. I want to finish this last side of the triangle. So then our feelings, with loneliness in particular as an emotion, I really feel that sometimes, most of the time, the feeling, the actual sensation of loneliness in your body. Like, what is that? To me, it's kind of like a grasping. It's a neediness. You feel contracted by yourself, and you're grasping to fill this smallness with the presence of others, the distraction of others. It feels sad. It feels maybe a little bit fearful. It feels, it's a very outward facing, where you kind of forget you, and you're reaching out to get something from other people. Loneliness isn't one of those emotions that is, like, unlike anger, where you can feel anger rise up in your body and then start, experience the backward triggering of these other things, the language of, oh, I'm angry, I feel angry in my body, and then telling the story. Loneliness, I feel, is something that is particularly activated. This whole triangle becomes activated from the thoughts and the beliefs. And then that physiological response comes into play kind of as a secondary, that contraction, that smallness, that grasping to the outside. So when we are wanting to fix this, I think the two sides of the triangle, the two parts of the equation that we really want to start tinkering with, are the thoughts and the beliefs. The thoughts and the beliefs. And I think, when you brought up that story of when I had you say, I am alone, what narratives came up for you? Like, oh God, yeah, I haven't seen people in a while. Like, oh my gosh, this is a common feeling for me. What were the thoughts that came up? Like, they're going to give themselves away, that proclamation of, I am alone. It's actually kind of a neutral statement. But you're going to have the thoughts and the beliefs that will automatically start kicking in and give themselves away. So what came up for you? What came up for you? Another good way to dig into the beliefs about being alone, is to ask yourself, what does being around others give you? What does being around other people give you that you don't perceive that you can have on your own? What does it give you? Does it give you attention? Does it give you support? Does it give you a feeling of being heard or seen? Does it give you a distraction from being you? So when we start to ask ourselves these things, we find out, these narratives, these stories, these beliefs will often just come up. They'll come up, and they'll give themselves away, right? Because that is what is causing the loneliness, is the quality of the beliefs and the thoughts. So how do we fix this? And I want to tell you a quick story. Loneliness for me has been a big problem. And particularly I find when I travel. Now, I have traveled, I've been on all the continents, and I went to every continent by myself. I went alone to every continent. And during that time, I was really finding that even though I was alone, I wasn't really ever alone. There were people everywhere. There was people in the hostels. I was making friends as I went. And so I never suffered from loneliness during that time because I knew I was never really alone. So holding that belief of I'm never really alone, especially when I'm traveling, there's people everywhere. There's people in the cities I'm going to. There's people on the streets that I could, I am never really alone. And so I never had a sense of loneliness. Now, contrast that with, I also lived in a van for 2 years, and I really suffered from loneliness when I lived in the van. Every day was kind of a struggle. I really felt isolated from society. Now, when I look back and I analyze, okay, what was the belief that I was holding that was causing that really intense sense of loneliness? It was the I don't belong. I don't belong. I felt a real sense of not belonging in the world because I lived in a van. And so sometimes it's not actually, the belief is something a little bit different. And so that equation was activated, right? I don't belong. And then the thoughts kind of are like, yeah, I can't legitimize living in a van and feeling like I have a place in the world. This is I had this story of, it was kind of an ostracized position. And so then, I had the feeling of aloneness a lot. Whereas if I had eliminated that belief, if I had been like, yeah, a lot of people live in a van, hashtag van life, super popular, like I am, or if I had adopted the belief of, yeah, I'm on the cutting edge, I'm an explorer, do you see how that changes then the equation and then the quality of the associated emotion? So, loneliness really is a sign to us, if you're experiencing emotion, it is a sign that there's a janky belief in there. There's a janky belief and there's some janky thoughts that are causing that sensation of loneliness. And the self-loving thing to do, what we want to do is really adopt self-love, where we don't allow ourselves to perpetuate a feeling of loneliness, right? Because we can change our thoughts. When we start to feel, I'm alone, and then we start to spiral, and I haven't seen people for forever, I don't belong in the world, this is a spiral. And the self-loving thing to do, if you really enjoy who you are and your beingness, we can stop that. The loving thing to do is not to let yourself perpetuate in that story and go deeper and deeper, because that's a bottomless pit, right? Loneliness. If you think about it, it will spiral into depression, a really hopelessness, these really darker feelings. What we want to do is kind of halt it. And we can do that with our thoughts. We can do that with our thoughts and be like, whoa, yeah, I'm alone, but what can I do? What can I do with my aloneness? I can get all these things done I've been wanting to do. I can enjoy a show that nobody else likes to watch with me. I can indulge myself in ways that I can't when there's another person around, because then we have to negotiate, who wants to see what and who wants to do what, and it's more of a compromise. So self-love and allowing ourselves the compassion to stop loneliness, to be like, okay, loneliness isn't who I am. It's not having anything to do with the presence of other people, because we can feel lonely in a room full of people, right? We can feel lonely in a room full of people. The loving thing to do is to, stop that when the thoughts start going into the beliefs and be like, oh, I'm alone. We want to give ourselves what we think that we're going to get from somebody else. The attention, the love, and support. This is where inner child work really comes into play. This is a good practice of, I'm going to give myself so directly, I'm right here. I feel alone. You're kind of comforting the story. You're comforting this inner child. You can call it whatever you want, this wounded part of yourself. You're comforting the bad habit of feeling alone. It's all the same thing. I like to grab my heart when I'm doing this. And in my self-love practice, this was a big part of, I feel alone. Okay, I'm right here. I gotcha. You're not alone. I'm here. Let's do whatever we want. Let's go eat some ice cream. Let's go for a walk. And giving yourself that attention, that support, that love, you can literally give yourself what you're craving, this story, this belief, I need this from other people, but you can give it to yourself. You actually conjure the feeling yourself. You comfort yourself in the way that you would expect to receive from other people. And, in doing that, and if you don't feel like it's as meaningful coming from yourself as it is from others, again, that's that power dynamic. Recognize that it's that dysfunctional power dynamic of, it's more important if somebody else does it for me versus if I do it for myself. So, I hope this helps you with loneliness. Let me know how it goes. Commit to self-love. Commit to be like, I'm not going to feel alone because I'm not really alone. And, it's the thought that I had when I was traveling. It's kind of like, if you look out the window, most places in America where you're living, you can open the window and hear the noise of other people, either cars or people, and we're never really alone. Like, if you just go out in the world ready to talk to other people and interact with them, you'll find you're never really alone. It's an illusion. So there are things in the 3D that you can actively do. You know, if you need attention, give that to yourself first, and then you can also seek it from others. You know, you can be the one to go out and talk to people and salve that with your action. So there's so many ways to knock out loneliness. And I hope this helped seeing the equation. So my takeaway tip is love yourself enough. Love being you. Practice loving being you, where you don't perpetuate a story, a narrative, a belief that feeds loneliness. Just don't feed it. Don't feed it. You starve it. Starve it. Because it's not a pleasant feeling. And the illusion is that we are alone. We're never really alone. The world is full of people. We're never alone. We can always jump into a good book and shift our consciousness to where we're not alone, right? It's the illusion of loneliness. So don't fall prey to it. I hope this helped. Leave a comment below if it did help you. Let me know what you thought. And thanks for watching. Bye.